make this. What do you mean?
Is this the one where Jordan plays the flute? That's my favorite.
Jordan took the walk to Poland.
Oh, hi, Stokastic, and we are live. Here we go. I was calling up the YouTube channel here so I could see the old.
Did you just do like an "oh hi, didn't notice you there" kind of intro to this show?
I didn't notice you there. All of a sudden, I look and Tyler's pointing at me. I'm like, oh, we should be live. Now I'm going to go into a coughing fit. So this is awesome. Harry, I'm handing this over to you.
Hey, what's going on, Stokastic football fans? Welcome aboard. It is what's today? Sunday night. Yeah, there's football on TV. It's probably Sunday night, single game showdown, etc. Slate of football here. We've got the Bengals and the Ravens. I'm Terry McBride. We've got EMac if he ever recovers. Hopefully he doesn't hit the floor. Looks like he's good. He's back. We've got Nick Lepri here. We're going to talk through the single game. We're going to get you guys all set up for this slate on both DraftKings and FanDuel as well as Yahoo. We'll build some lineups. We'll talk some no house advantage. What else, EMac? What have I missed?
Oh, we've got the usual excitement. We had yet another great showing by tight ends today, especially if you played Taysom Hill at tight ends in season-long leagues or on FanDuel.
One guy out there nodding his head right now, like, yeah, Taysom Hill. Everybody else is pissed off about that.
Yeah, Davis Maddock doing cartwheels. I know he talks about him all off season in the best ball drafts. So I didn't actually get Taysom.
Hated that.
I only did 10 best balls. So no Taysom Hill for me. I did pick him up to replace Kyle Pitts in one of my season-long money leagues, so that was nice. But we've got some interesting stuff to look at tonight. We actually have two competent quarterbacks. So while we don't have a gigantic total per se, we've got a really good one tomorrow night, pushing 52 between Kansas City and Las Vegas. But tonight we've got Cincinnati heading into Baltimore here, and it was somewhere in the mid 40s. But each team is projected for about 3 touchdowns, a little bit over. And the nice thing is we have two competent quarterbacks and a multitude of pass catchers. We also have some interesting stuff here on DraftKings because Rashad Bateman is out. So we not only have one, we have two $200 wide receivers. Of course, those guys have played combined, I think, 20 games in their careers over the last 2 years, and I think they've seen 32 targets. But they're $200. So we've got those guys. We might have a consolidated running back outside of Lamar Jackson. So we've got all sorts of paths to go. And who knew that Joe Mixon, he's not getting it done with efficiency. He's getting it done on volumes and averaging 6 targets a game. The simulation, Terry, the simulation is strong this NFL season. So here we go. We got to give a moment here to Nick Lepri, down to your third string quarterback. Your Mets are trying to stave off elimination of the postseason. I'm playing with house money, not on no house advantage, but with the Mariners, who somehow came back and won 10-9 yesterday. I almost wore my Mariners shirt, but I didn't. Nick, how are you feeling? Two stomach punches in a row here.
Yeah, honestly, watching that game earlier just made me very sad. Like it was honestly hard to watch. Like the fact that the first play of the game, Teddy gets whacked out like he's in a mafia movie, and then we get a safety on that play too, like as if he didn't throw the ball forward, like that was intentional grounding. And then after that, we were getting
that was
grounded,
a crap
pounded
call
into the
grounding
ground.
at least.
Yeah, the officiating today was awful. Like that Tom Brady thing was the worst call I think I've ever seen.
That was so bad. Like if you're not allowed to just sack a quarterback anymore, like we should just go to flag football. It would solve the concussion thing. Like let's just play flag football. It'll be more wide open. It'll be more of what everybody likes. People will actually catch passes, and I think it would be better at this point. I really honestly do. Like I'm so done with this.
I'm looking forward to your Pro Bowl flag football article, Terry. I'm looking forward to it. You're going to get that one, and Nick's going to have National Tight End Day, which is 2 Sundays from now.
I'm here for the 100 points, the 100-point flag football shootouts. Let's go. Let's make this more interesting. Let's save these guys' lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm with you, Nick, though. That I had, I think I mentioned it on the show. I had my dynasty team in this year's draft. I ended up with like Fields and just a streaming setup, and one of those streaming options was Tua. And I was like, all right, after the first couple of weeks, this is working out. And the Tua went down. So for this week, I picked up Teddy. I was like, all right, Teddy's got a great matchup against a Jet, and that's just not working out. So I think I'm going to pick up this Knicks guy and just start him next week and just see how far down we can ride this.
Yeah, yikes. Scary. All right. Well, we're going to get into the analysis and the discussion here. Terry was out having some fun last weekend, so Nick and I ran the two-man booth. We're back to our full hour and change before this game. We're going to break it all down. We're going to build out some lineups. Then we'll circle back and cover any of the analysis we didn't cover as we build out lineups. And of course, we'll talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage. If you sign up through the link that is below us in the description here, they will match you up to $50 in your first deposit. And their contest, nothing but overlay. So they have two game formats there. One they set out tonight. We've got 7 slots. We rank these in confidence points. There's about 30 questions, and you basically pick over or under. It's player props, and then you assign 7 through 1 in your contest. Those points for yes or no, if you're correct, score against the other players that you're playing in the contest. They are running about 50% overlay on most of their tournaments, so you'll want to check that out. If that's not quite your speed and you want to play against the house, they also have some props up for tonight's games, and that is the more traditional format. They're setting the line. You decide if it goes over or under. These lines are a lot sharper than the ones in the games. One, because why wouldn't you be if you're going this route? And 2, in the games, they set them a little bit, or they're a little bit offset. So you have decision points if you want to go over or under. And then we have free projections, as well have built out several hundred lineups that you can enter in these contests. But we'll talk about them after we get through the main stuff here. Please do hit that like button. We got about 500 people watching. Love to see us get up over 100. That's very helpful. Plus, we can show our faces around the water cooler on Monday in the Stokastic Slack channel. So check that out, and we'll have some fun. All right, Terry, we missed you last week. We built out our
lineup to the people of Red Bank, New Jersey, for what me and my friends did to the town.
What did you do?
I'm just apologizing to Red Bank, New Jersey, where we ended up. We were supposed to go to a show in Asbury Park, but the show got canceled because of the non-hurricane, but it was really shitty out. It wouldn't have been a good day for an outdoor show. So instead, we just hunkered down in the old bar that we used to go to when we were kids in Red Bank, and had some fun and some memories, and were way too loud, and, did our thing. It was a lot of fun.
Times. In other words, good times were had. Now I'm going to ask a dumb question, then we'll get back. Well, not dumb. For everybody but me, how far away are you from Asbury Park? I didn't think you lived by there.
Nothing in New Jersey is overly far away. Everything's within 2.5 hours. But if I drove there, I'm an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay. So it's not
I have to go by train and everything because I don't have a car and all that, and don't want one. So it takes me a little longer. But yeah, about that.
All right. Now we're back to.
I grew up. I was just curious because I grew up like 20 minutes north of Asbury Park.
Yeah, my aunt and uncle live about 15 minutes from Asbury Park. So
really? How did we never discuss this before? Hold on. Everybody can wait. Where in New Jersey do they live?
I'm Oakhurst.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I grew up like 20 minutes the other direction. But all right. We can go back to football.
So we're going over to the blue site. We're going over there on FanDuel. By the way, get us up to 100 likes and I'll put some team free money. EMac $1 head-to-heads in there on the DK streets. I was so bad last week in DK Classic Cash. I have self-selected out of DK Classic. I did not play TJ Hawkinson, so I have banned myself from DraftKings. I played FanDuel this week, and we'll see what happens. I, of course, can't stay away from the siren song of showdowns, of which I've played about 7 different games. But that is what it is. But I had to give up the cash games over there. All right, Terry, over on FanDuel here, we have, I guess, the most intriguing thing on a Lamar Jackson slate is how many lineups do you build before Lamar Jackson is not in your multiplier slot? Now, I believe he has ended up in the optimal lineup. I read this from somebody else's article yesterday. I think he's been like in the optimal lineup on DraftKings 3, or as the captain, 3 of his last 12 games. So it's not
DraftKings or FanDuel?
DraftKings.
Okay. Because it's a very different story when you get the salary multiplier on that.
Correct. And that kind of evens things out a little bit. On FanDuel, I didn't see what it was on FanDuel. I'm imagining it to be rather difficult to win without it, unless you capture a receiver that gets 2 touchdowns, or running back who gets 2 touchdowns, basically anybody that gets 2 touchdowns, or the opposing quarterback. So now that we've laid that groundwork over on the blue side, who would you like to choose as your captain?
So, I mean, my answer to that question of how many lineups would you build before you didn't use Lamar in the multiplier spot is 1, it would be the first one. I would not use Lamar in the captain spot. That's the easiest, most immediate way that we can make a differentiated lineup on this site. And yeah, he's going to be the top scorer, according to our numbers, 37.7% of the time. He's going to be the optimal captain 22.9% of the time. That means there's a whopping amount of the time that he is not going to be the optimal captain. And I can take advantage of that. I can jump in there. He's 21.7% owned. Technically, he is positively leveraged on the slate. So I do want to be in the Lamar captain business. Don't get me wrong. He's going to be in a bunch of my captain spots. He makes the most sense on pure raw projection, most upside. But I want to get away from 20% of the field's ownership on that in the captain spot. And there's a lot of other appealing options. Joe Burrow is not that far behind him in terms of the upside if he has a good passing game. Some of these receivers, like you mentioned, I like going that route. Typically, that's the direction I do go. So the first lineup that I built actually had Devin Duvernay in the captain spot. I feel like that's maybe a little bit thin to use for the show. So I just like the leverage, and I like the almost total lack of ownership at 4% on FanDuel. But we can take a look at maybe one of the Bengals receivers. I'm taking a look here at Jamar Chase is sitting with a 10% probability of being a top scorer, 9% optimal rate, 9% captain owned. Yeah, he's efficiently owned in the captain role, but I think at 9% versus the 20 some odd percent, I think that makes some sense. So I'm going to grab Chase. Why not? Let's go that route, because that's what I didn't do with the lineup that I built before.
All right. And now to finish out your thought, do you not want Lamar at all on this lineup?
No, I think he's a foundational piece for most FanDuel lineups that I do. I will have a lot of them in the captain role, and then I will probably have a massive amount of them in these util spots. In util, he's 54% owned. I will most likely be higher than that in the util spot, I think, because I think it's unlikely that he doesn't put up any points. It's just, can you get that, handful of points higher than him in the multiplier, or so that it just values out, the right way based on ownership. And you can create a differentiated lineup. So he is a very important piece. I am not saying fade Lamar Jackson.
All right. So Lamar does lead the league in touchdowns right now. He has 11 passing and I want to say 2 rushing. If we remember, after week 1, there was some rumors, whispers that he might not be running this year because he's, hoping he doesn't get injured with that big free agency payday. In the next, so he ran 6 times for 17 yards. The next 3 games, he's run 31 times, including 2 different games where he had more than 100 yards and a touchdown. He also became the second NFL player ever to go for 300 and 100 in the same game. I don't think we have to worry about that. I'm going to make the selection here for us to put in Lamar Jackson. I'm going to hand this over to Nick. The other thing I do want to point out, remember last year, Joe Burrow had not 1, but 2 amazing games against the Ravens. Their secondary was rather decimated in that second game, but he did end up with 939 yards and 7 touchdowns in the 2 times he played the Ravens. That's not tonight's team, but tonight's team's defense, not what it once was, not as bad as that, not as depleted as that. They're still missing a few key people. Those are the highlights I wanted to cover for our signal callers. Nick, where would you like to go for our next selection?
All right, I'm just testing things right now because if we do go with Joe Burrow, we're going to only have 7,000 left per player, and that just does not seem ideal. So I guess we won't go with Joe Burrow, and we will go with – this is tough because there's actually a lot of players that I like in the slate. I'm disappointed my boy Rashad Bateman isn't playing because I would have been all over him, but he is in the walking boot, which is not good. So we are going to go with Devin Duvernay of the Baltimore Ravens. Devin Duvernay is kind of a hit or miss player in regard to just determining what he's going to do every single week, but he does have pretty solid upside. And I do think that with not Hollywood Brown out, with the other guy out who just his name escaped me, I do really think that Devin Duvernay is the clear number 1 guy there besides Mark Andrews.
All right. We're going to swing this back to me. Please allow myself to introduce myself. We're going with Evan McPherson at kicker. We have to, Terry. It's in the bylaws. We say gross. Did you know in his career, which spans 20 games, he's 15 or 12 of 14 from 50 or more. That's a better percentage than even
he's
Justin Tucker.
Why they call him Money McPherson.
Well, there we go. So that leaves us with $12,000. Fair amount of wiggle room there. Which I want to turn back over to Terry, because Terry is never afraid to leave money on the table if need be. We could zero things out by going with T. Higgins, but that's what they're going to expect from us. So we may want to go a different direction. Terry, the world is your oyster. What do you want to do with our last slot, $12,000?
Yeah, so I do think that, completely unwinding from 2 picks ago, I do think if Nick had gone with Joe Burrow, we did have viable approaches to lineups. There are a couple $5,000 players that are at least have reasonable chances of seeing a couple touches, possibly getting in the end zone. So I do think there were options there, but I do think that this was the better approach to probably building a higher upside lineup. It might get duped, depending on what we do with this last pick. But if we're looking for fantasy points, I think that was the right decision to make. So I like those last 2 with Duvernay and McPherson here. And then $12,000 to spend. It doesn't put me in a great spot because I could go J.K. Dobbins and leave just 500 on the table, but then we're really, really chalky. That's a really popular build if we're doing that. We're duped, 250 times. So I don't really see winning with a lineup like that. What about Hayden Hurst? Just go off the board like a little oddball tight end. It's not off the board. That was the wrong thing to say, but 15% owned definitely cuts off a decent chunk more than going with Dobbins. We could go lower owned than that, and we could go Tyler Boyd at 13% for $10,000. But I like the idea of going to the tight end and maybe leaving a little bit more salary on the table makes it a more differentiated decision, right? The raw ownership on Hayden Hurst would be 15%, but the number of people that would make that specific decision with the extra money to spend and go to Hayden Hurst to build this specific lineup would probably be pretty thin. So I think I'm going to do a differentiated build and take a Hayden Hurst spot there, at least $4,000 on the table. I think it's got decent upside.
All right. Well, of course, Nick's going to co-sign that because it's a tight end. And 2, hey, remember me, because Hayden Hurst, first round draft pick about 5 or 6 years ago by Baltimore. So we're checking all the boxes here. Differentiation, not the worst moment there out there. And Hayden Hurst is a decent option in here. So again, these are the large field builds, and sometimes we're going to be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Why do we want to be a little bit different? Well, because sometimes you want to go after the fantasy points. And as we saw in the abomination, that was the Denver game, 2 kickers on DraftKings, 2 defenses, 2 receivers. Yikes.
If anyone from any broadcasting affiliated with the NFL is watching, please flex Denver's upcoming primetime and featured games. There 3 times in the first 5 weeks they were in a primetime featured game, and now we're going to get them on a Monday night and a London game and then another game. It's enough already with that team. It's enough. So
all right. I see Eric Traub.
I do want to say I just want to point out that is a lineup that we just built that has 2 pass catchers from Cincinnati without their quarterback in there. But I do think it's a viable approach because you've got Chase in the multiplier spot. So you just say, hey, we're going to get the big game out of Chase. We can leave those passes on the side. And if Burrow doesn't go off for 400 and change yards and 4 TDs, 5 TDs in through the air with him getting 2 of them, I think we're fine. If it's like a 3 touchdown game, Chase gets 2 of them, Hurst gets 1 of them, I think we're okay leaving Burrow on the side with that lineup. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix because it is an oddball to have 2 of them without the passer.
All right. See, Eric, we'll get to your super chat. Don't worry. I see Sean saying, but the groin injury. Well, he was limited practice 2 days this week. He basically got a maintenance day on Friday. There's no reason to push him back. They have a plethora of options there in Cincinnati. So I'm going to assume he's good to go on this one. And shout out to Sammy Telesco, the Buffalo War Pigs. The Buffalo War Pigs. We like that. All righty, let's head on over here to Yahoo to build out a lineup there. See how did my today's lineup go? No bueno. AJ Brown, not good. Marquez Callaway, ouch. James Robinson, geez. How can we not be at 100 likes yet to get some team free money? EMac, DraftKings head-to-heads out there. I don't play TJ Hawkinson. I put out an ass lineup like that. You want this money from team free money. Come and get it. Nick, we're going to start off with you. Yahoo. We've got a variety of options here. My wife, of course, is home at the perfect time. So my dog's going to go crazy. I'm turning this over to you, Nick. Who would you like at the top of the board?
All right. We're going to go with my main man, T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. I really like T. Higgins. Even though he was concussed a couple days ago, he was perfectly fine up against the Dolphins. Absolutely shit all over our defense, if I'm being honest with you. So I like him a lot this week. I honestly think it really is just a 1A, 1B situation with Chase and Higgins, and most teams don't have that.
Yeah, and so if you look at DraftKings, there's a dramatic discount by going to T. Higgins from Chase. It's less pronounced on FanDuel, and then Yahoo. You're usually going to build something out that's going to leave a little bit of money if you want to get difference. You've got Higgins is still $5 less than Chase, so the salaries are a little harder to compare proportionally over there on Yahoo, because if you get a $10 baller in there, you can really maneuver things around. But on DraftKings, T. Higgins is the way to go. The interesting thing, when both those guys are on the field and healthy at the same time, they're relatively even. Yes, they have someone will have a good game, the other one will have a good game, but if you look across the time where they both played in the games, their production is rather similar. So even it's the 1A 1B is an excellent example. Defenses pick your poison, and then you got to deal with Joe Mixon, et cetera. So we'll see what happens here. Terry, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, we went T. Higgins with that first one, and we left Joe Burrow on the table in the other FanDuel build. So I kind of just want to go with an easy one here. We'll take Mr. Burrow off the table. We'll pair him with his premium wide receiver 1A probably there, and we'll be off to the races on Yahoo. Leaves us $22 per spot, $68 total for our last three. Kind of like where we're at. That can get us to a lot of different options on this Yahoo slate.
All right. Well, we're going to go with Lamar Jackson once again.
That's because
I think it's a good exercise to talk through on these. This is kind of your Ben Rosso says it best, is you can fade a player like Lamar Jackson by playing him in the flex, just by not putting him in the multiplier, but you're not completely leaving him out of the lineup. That's kind of crazy. So that gives us $15 per spot. We'll let Nick make the next selection here. Our $10 ballers would be Mike Thomas, not that Mike Thomas, but the other Mike Thomas. He's like fifth or sixth in the pecking order there. Samaje Perine, who plays on about 20% of the snaps. He's good for about half a dozen opportunities. Let's see who else is there. Mike Davis, Kenyon Drake, Demarcus Robinson, James Proche. It's Isaiah Likely. It's a little harder to go to the $10 guys here. It's not the same as these guys that are 1,000 or less, and two or three of them are 200 on DraftKings. So there's not quite that standout $10 option tonight. Who would you like to look at, Nick? We've got $15 per, which means we can max out at 20 for our next player.
Okay. Genuine question. I looked this up and I can't find the correct answer. Is Gus Edwards playing tonight or no? It says he's PUP on Yahoo, but he did return to practice this week.
So he returned to practice.
He's not on their inactive list.
Have to play. Well, I think he technically is. He has to be actually activated within the next 3 weeks, if I remember reading the article correctly. I can't tell for sure, because they have Kenyon Drake, who I think they called up from the practice squad. Yeah. But they have Mike Davis as well, who's been active most of the weeks. Drake was active the first 2 weeks when Dobbins was out. They can call him up one more time before they have to sign him. They're not going to worry.
My answer was more, I don't think it's an impossibility that he sees the field. Like, I think he will be on the roster and wearing a uniform tonight. Whether he actually touches the ball, plays a single snap, I don't know.
Right, is entirely different.
I think that's beyond our game.
But the interesting ones here are like a Dobbins at 16, Duvernay at 13, et cetera. Those are like the most viable cheapies. But your call on this one, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason why I wanted to bring up Gus Edwards is because it does kind of shift my opinion on J.K. Dobbins if Edwards is healthy or not, because I really just don't think that the other guys move the needle, whereas I feel like Gus Edwards kind of does for me, because I think Gus Edwards is a better back than all the other guys they have. But I'm going to go with, we're to just keep it simple again, layup Hayden Hurst. I really do like Hayden Hurst a ton in this matchup. He, surprisingly, since they have so many receivers that are good there, like, he's still getting a lot of targets. And it's a revenge game.
The number one questions with Gus Edwards on Twitter right now is Gus Edwards active? What is Gus Edwards' status? What is Gus Edwards' status? Is Gus Edwards active? So a few people asking that. I do see chat is saying that he is out. David Porter, he's in, and he cites DK. He knows that we don't like to get our injury reporting or even our starting lineups from the daily fantasy sites, but I'm sure David has run that one to ground as best he can, because he's a longtime viewer here. All right, so you said Hayden Hurst, so
that leaves us $17.
Leave us $17. What do you think, Terry? Do we go with J.K. Dobbins here? We leave $1 on the table. I think he's a better play than the Baltimore Ravens defense. While this will be probably duped, I think going away from Lamar in the multiplier is going to make it less likely to be duped here. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I have no issues with the Dobbins call. I think there's enough there. I do get a little bit concerned that he gets poached by the other guy in the lineup if Lamar decides to run one in and he doesn't get his touchdown. There's a little bit of that going on and a little bit of potentially negative correlation there. I had actually clicked on Hayden Hurst and Devin Duvernay in my version of this lineup. So that's probably where I would go. I think it's a little bit more differentiated than going to Dobbins there. I think you get the pairing and you get a little positive correlation potentially with Lamar. Again, if you decide to run it in, you're obviously not getting positive correlation with Devin Duvernay, but that's basically the same. In this case, if he throws it, you get a decent shot at the touchdown there. And you leave $4 on the table instead of $1 on the table. So I think you've got a little bit more of a shot at being differentiated. So that's the way I went with mine, but I see no issues whatsoever with going to Dobbins. I also thought it would have been interesting to go with Hayden Hurst and the Bengals defense and just leave Lamar on an island as the only Raven in the lineup and play him against the Bengals defense. I thought that was also an interesting approach to this lineup.
All right, we're heading over to DraftKings to build that out, and we'll talk any of the analysis we didn't quite cover. We've hit on a lot of the key parts here. And then, of course, we'll talk some no-house advantage. We'll have some time for some questions. I do see we have a super chat here. So let's take this moment to answer one for Eric Traub, Team Eric. It says, my usual question, who is your favorite player under 10% owned on the DK utility? 10% does not have to be a hard cutoff. You'd prefer it to be in the low teens or below. Terry, do you have a lean on that one?
DK util under 10% owned, yes? All right, let me jump over to the DK board here since we're jumping onto that lineup build anyway. We've got both defenses sitting 15%, 14%. So I know it's not exactly 10, but like you said, it's not a hard and fast line there. You've got Prosh at 7.1.
My answer would be Prosh because he opens up the entire board.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. At $200. I mean, that makes a hell of a lot of sense on DK. So that's probably it. Like, it's kind of surprising that he's not a little bit more popular than that at that price. I think that does make a ton of sense, given what you can do with that salary and flexibility. And we've got him sitting at a 1.5% probability of being a top 2 to 6 scorer. So I guess it depends on what you need in that lineup. If you've got the rest of it built and you don't need the salary savings, you're just looking to lock in some fantasy points, you get a much higher probability by going with either one of the defenses. So whichever one kind of fits in there. You could also look at a guy like Likely, who's sitting at 1,400, or like at Demarcus Robinson. Just both of those guys sitting with reasonable probabilities of being involved and in the mid-teens in terms of util ownership. The other guy I was going to throw into the mix would be Samaje Perine at 5,000, 6.7% on 1.2% probability of being involved. It's thin, but it's there. We've seen him do that before. We've seen him catch a pass and take it to the house before. So I wouldn't be totally shocked by that either. So any one of those, they're all looking fairly similar. Just basically depends on what you need in that lineup you've built.
All right, I just dropped $1 head-to-heads in the DK lobby. Team EMac, team free money username EMac. I see we are up to 1,200. Let's get us to 200 likes. We really would appreciate that. That would be phenomenal. I think our record thus far is 1,500 on a Sunday night show. So we have a chance of getting there tonight. We shall see. I'm assuming most of the afternoon games must have been just wrapped up, because that's usually when we see a nice little surge in our viewership. All right. So moving over to DraftKings here, we will let Nick select our captain for the night here. Nick, you can go first. Who would you like to choose as our DK captain as we build out a tournament lineup?
Yeah, I want to go with T. Higgins again, but we're not going to do that because I don't think that's as fun. Go with the same captain twice in a row. So we're going to go with Mr. Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens, the de facto wide receiver one who just plays tight end.
That's completely fair. I will turn it over to Terry.
I think that's a good call. 20. I think it's a good call. Positively leveraged captain, second most likely guy on the board to be. Oh no, actually, our most likely guy on the board. Excuse me, to be the optimal captain on the DraftKings slate, just because of the difference in salary between him and Lamar, him and Burrow, him and Chase. So I really like that. We're getting him at positive leverage. He's 14% owned, so he is a little bit popular, second most popular player on the board in the captain role. But given the fact that he's going to be so frequently optimal, that's perfectly fine there. you could go with Lamar in this next spot and just kind of, grab the correlation, grab the pairing, grab all the crazy upside of those guys. Kind of starting to make sense to me to maybe just think it through that way. But I'm just going to build in our value guys so that we have a lot of salary to play with. I'm going to grab that Prosh play and put him in here at $200. Just take it right off the board at the top of the lineup so we can go forward with all the money that we need to spend in the entire world.
All right. In that case, Lamar Jackson, that takes it back to you, Nick. 7,700 per.
All righty. Love that. Oh, I wish we could.
I wanted to point out a couple, just real quick, couple of things on the defense. I'd meant to cover this when we were on the Yahoo, but it seems pertinent to at least hit it now. Baltimore's allowed 8 sacks this season. They have 4 interceptions, 1 fumble. Cincinnati has 7 sacks and 7 takeaways through the first 4 games. However, wait for it, lucky 7. They have the 7th best overall DVOA, 7th best against the rush, 8th best against the pass. It just has not culminated in fantasy production at this point. Baltimore, bit of a shadow of what we have come to expect from Baltimore, but they've been pretty abysmal against the run. They have 8 sacks on the season. They actually lead the league with 10 takeaways. Cincinnati is a bit of a sack issue. They've allowed the 3rd most sacks in the league, but they only have half a dozen turnovers. James Prosh, producer Tyler, James Prosh.
Just hit another $200 lineup guy. I think he's not in the builder.
I'm sorry. What was that, Terry?
Tyler Wallace
if he's missing from the DraftKings builder, just put a different $200 guy in.
Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Tyler Wallace is a placeholder for Prosh, chat. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Nick, to you now.
All right. Now, if I go cheap, I kind of want to get McPherson on this lineup, to be honest with you. But
no argument from me.
I've kind of talked myself into Joe Mixon. Did you guys hear that after that game against the Dolphins where Mixon was just getting flattened, that he had like a meeting with the O-line? He's like, guys, you got to block better. Like what's that going to do? But just thought that was interesting. Funny tidbit to talk about. We're going to add Money McPherson again.
Yeah. Oh, Joe, we never thought of that. I wasn't actually trying hard. But now that you mentioned something, I guess I will actually block. I was going out there with my eyes closed, Joe, but now that you said something.
So here's
I do like that pick, just giving him the volume, like EMac was saying at the top of the show, just the ball's in his hands so much.
All right. So so we've got Andrews, Prosh, Jackson, Mixon, and McPherson. That leaves us 10,600. We could zero this out, Terry, with Joe Burrow, or we could go to T. Higgins, who does not project that much differently than Burrow, and he is 2,400 less. That does a couple things. 1, create some differentiation. 2, allows people that don't want to go with the $200 approach to move away from that. You can start to look at Kenyon Drake, Isaiah Likely as other options. You've got Ricard, the fullback, Patrick Ricard, who will be on the field about 60% of the time. He's usually good for 2 looks a game. It gets a little rough there. He did get 3 targets in his last game. That was a season high. He has 5 total on the season. He has 2 carries, but he is out on the field. We don't necessarily know that that's going to be exactly the case with Prosh there. So how are you feeling about T. Higgins or zeroing it out?
I'm feeling like we're not necessarily telling the story of a blowout kind of a ball game with this one. So I don't necessarily know if I want to go with a wide out or the other quarterback. I'm thinking we might just go with a totally differentiated kind of a build and just take Justin Tucker and go with a double kicker lineup. We've got Joe Mixon, we've got Lamar and everything he does on the ground. We've got Mark Andrews coming through the air, but tight end focus kind of a game. So you just think of a narrative. I was thinking maybe use one of the defenses here. And then I was trying to decide which one. And I don't really love that. I kind of like the double kicker approach. So I do think that's tournament viable there, but like to build everybody a better, more, upsidey, more user-friendly kind of a lineup. What about J.K. Dobbins? That leaves a lot of salary on the table. That's probably somewhat unique, leaves 3,600 on the board, kind of follows that same idea of a ground-based game, not an airborne kind of a game. So how do you guys feel about that?
I would rather go with Dobbins.
Okay, good. So I like that. Tucker
we're kind of just using Prosh as the throwaway. It's the other people that are around, and there's a lot of $200 players tonight. Devin Assisi is there for, he's the 2nd or 3rd string tight end for the Bengals. We mentioned Mike Thomas. You've got Mitchell Wilcox, who is another tight end that's down there. Those guys are a little bit thinner of the options that you've got at $1,000. You've got Kenyon Drake, Isaiah Likely's at 1,400. So this is going to be a little bit different of a slate because I think a lot of people are going to easily be able to build out competent lineups and still getting in around 47,000 of the $50,000 salary cap on DraftKings. So I don't think that leaving that much salary on the table is the absolute path to differentiation, like it is a lot of the time. But I think it's still it will limit the duplications.
But I do think a lot of the hand builders, a lot of the people that are going to reach that point, if they've used a $200 guy, will be more inclined to go towards spending more of their money, more of their available money. So I think if you're making that decision, I'm using a $200 guy, I'm using up 80% of the value that he creates and leaving 20% of that value that he created on the table as a tax to pay for being a differentiated lineup. I do think that there's value in doing that. It wouldn't probably be the approach for one person building one lineup, but in 150 lineups, that would be something I would consider a decent amount of the time. It would be to, approach it that way.
Yep. And then another variation of that build would be to keep Andrews in the MVP, but you could go with Burrow and Higgins instead of Mixon and I forget who our other person was, but that's what I'm doing. Put that on the Millie Maker, baby. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the overarching analysis. We have quite some time. My dog keeps wanting to come in. I'm going to close the door because she's feeling the pain. It's like, but my favorite blanket's on the floor in there. But then she noses the door in just enough and won't come in or out. She just sits there staring at me like a demon. So,
yeah, you're a monster. You close the door with her favorite blanket in there. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to hear her pawing at the door shortly. But yeah, there we are. There we are. All right. So let's see. Moving back up to the top here, we hit most of the key things about Burrow. We mentioned he has had 2 phenomenal games against this team, 939 yards, 7 touchdowns. Last season, we have him ranked as the quarterback 10 for the full week in the Stokastic projections for both DraftKings and FanDuel. This is his 3rd year. He, of course, has thrown for at least 275 yards and multiple touchdowns in 3 of the first 4 games after that disaster where he threw 4 interceptions against Pittsburgh in week 1. He has not turned the ball over since. Nick, do you have any thoughts about the overarching passing game here for the Bengals? They're not the Bungles anymore.
Cincinnati Bungles. Yeah, my stronger take, again, I am more definitely on T. Higgins tonight when compared to Jamar Chase. And of course, the Mets just letting her run as I'm talking, but
it's not your day, buddy.
I hate to see it. Yeah, it's actually 2. It's 2-0 now.
Nick said there may be tears before the end of the show, depending on the score of the Mets and Padres game.
Yeah, honestly, this is just
turn it off now, buddy.
Sad day. It's a bad day.
TV on tonight. You don't need this. You don't need this pain.
Yeah, I don't need this. But yeah, in reality, my actual take here is that I do believe that T. Higgins will outscore Jamar Chase. But while I do think that, I feel like Jamar Chase is kind of due for a big game. Like week 1 against Pittsburgh, he went off. But besides that, he's been like, people on the fantasy football channel have been like, is Jamar Chase washed? Like, is he going to start to wake up? Like, he's getting like 12 points. Is he going to wake up? I'm like, yeah, like, don't panic. Like, when you have a guy
that has 22 career games, people. He's one of the best receivers in the league already. Is he
done?
Washed? No.
Cross him off for the season. He's done.
Yeah, but besides them, I do really like Hayden Hurst a lot tonight. It is weird, though, again, like I said earlier, that they just have so many players that are so talented, and yet Hayden Hurst is still able to play well. It's not really that surprising, though, with CJ Uzomah's usage last year. So I also like Hayden Hurst a ton.
All right. Terry, anything you want to add there on the Bengals passing game? And you can take us into the running game.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's not much to argue with what Nick said. Burrow's obviously a premium quarterback most of the time. While he's upright, he certainly is. ATs on the year, 64% completion rate. And you know who the targets are. It's not exactly a complex decision here. So I would probably focus on a decent amount of Hayden Hurst. Like I'm chasing some of the underappreciated upside in some of those secondary receivers, maybe some Perrine out of the backfield. You know, you hope for that. Like I said, when I was talking about him before, you hope that he catches that one target that he's going to get, or 2 targets. You hope he catches one of them and takes it 50 yards or takes it to the house, you know. So I'm making plays like that, but obviously, you know that the premium receivers are the guys to pair with them the most frequently. On the ground, Joe Mixon, not a lot to say there either. You started the show by saying how much volume that he gets. Just looking at his target, 9, 4, 7, and 4 the first 4 weeks of the season. In terms of touches, 28 last week, 34 in week 1. Like, the guy's just got the ball in his hands a lot. Hopefully he got his issues with the offensive line sorted out, like what Nick was saying, but I like the Joe Mixon spot a lot. I think it's certainly full of upside. That's the case with Joe Mixon all the time, but he's not getting a massive amount of attention. Like, looking at the DK board, 8.5% in the captain spot for Joe Mixon. He's only going to be the top player 5.4% of the time by our numbers, optimal 3.7% with the salary adjustment. So he's technically negative leverage, but I just kind of like the idea of an under 10% owned Joe Mixon in the captain role, just on raw scoring upside. So I think you can kind of not worry as much about the fact that he's the most negatively leveraged captain over there. I do think he's highly playable in that role. So it's just an interesting, look at Mixon today.
All right, heading over to the Ravens. We have Lamar Jackson in the projections. When I wrote my article, only Burrow and Mark Andrews were the only players within 7 points of him on DraftKings. That's full PPR. If we look over that on FanDuel, it drops down to just Burrow. That's just kind of showing where he is with regards to the overarching pool of things. We know that Rashad Bateman obviously is out. Devin Duvernay, it wouldn't surprise me if he gives up at least punt return duties to Proche or one of the other receivers. He does dual kick return duties, but as kind of now the best receiver that's healthy aside from Mark Andrews, he is, I wouldn't surprise me if he loses out on that. That's totally fine, but he has a breakaway threat there. He can score from anywhere on the field. We've seen him do well in island games previously, especially when he was the cheap $600 player on DraftKings. We also have a couple pivots away from him. Tylan Wallace is the other option. Combined, Wallace and Proche have just 40 snaps this season. They were both mid-round draft picks 2 years ago, but combined, they have 16 games and 31 targets. Again, when we're putting Proche in there, it's just an absolute punt. I would not really want to play those guys on FanDuel where they're 5,000 and 5,500, I think is their numbers. But the salary floor is entirely different on DraftKings than it is on FanDuel or Yahoo. So that's the main reason we're talking about those guys here. Nick, anything you want to call out with Lamar Jackson? Is he trying to regain the MVP title belt there from why am I blanking on his name?
Aaron Rodgers?
John Wick. Yes, Aaron Rodgers. Looks like John.
Yeah, that is true. He was John Wick for Halloween. All right, yeah, on Lamar, last week was not the best game for him. Obviously, anyone who watched that game, that was a real, like, the Ravens are just choke artists at this point. And again, I'm not trying to insult any Ravens fans. I'm sure the Ravens would have beat the Jets. They already did. I know the Dolphins lost to the Jets, so very funny. But he's had 2 games this year with over 100 rushing yards. Last week, he had 70 rushing yards. Like, the guy's just a cheat code. I know that's a lame thing to say, right? Oh, these quarterbacks that can run, they're cheat codes in fantasy. Well, it's legitimately true. The guy's insane. He's second in QBR in the NFL right now. I expect a huge game out of him tonight. And I do think that him and Jalen Hurts are probably the odds-on favorite right now in my book, if I was the bookmaker, to win the MVP this year. So I expect a big game out of him. And then in terms of the other options, I kind of wish Justice Hill was healthy because I feel like he is the clear number 2 running back on that team when Edwards isn't healthy. But without Justice Hill being there, Mike Davis or Kenyon Drake, in terms of the running backs, are just as uninteresting as it gets, at least in my opinion.
All right, Terry, you want to piggyback on same thing, passing game and running game here?
Yeah, I was in the process of highlighting a lineup that had the name Mike Davis in it, as Nick was saying that. So, I take those guys a little bit differently. I do chase a lot of those lower owned, potential to touch the ball a handful of times. In Showdown, it's something I just stress a decent amount when we're on these shows. In Showdown, you don't need this guy to carry the ball 20 times. You don't need this guy to score 2 touchdowns. You need a handful of yards. You need a touchdown. If he falls into the end zone, sees the ball a couple of times, that's enough. So I am getting to some of those lower owned guys. They're not comfortable plays if you're chasing, just looking to cash, I want to put 150 lineups over the cash line, these aren't the plays to be making. But if you're looking to put a differentiated lineup toward the top of the standings, I do think those are viable approaches. So it's just a, kind of a different way to look at these slates. But yeah, you're going with, if you're looking at Davis, you're looking at a guy, 4 touches, 2 touches, 5 touches, not exactly a tremendous amount of volume here. If you're looking at Samaje Perine, it's similar type numbers. So, I mean, there are certainly risks with going with that type of approach. And we all know that the Baltimore backs at least play on a team where their quarterback is just as likely as they are, if not more likely, to take the ball into the end zone on the ground. So it's always a concern, but it's definitely something we can go to through the air. It's the Mark Andrews show at the tight end. And as Nick said, when he was teeing him up before, he's the de facto wide receiver 1. He just happens to play in the tight end spot. So he'd be my focus, but I do like Devin Duvernay, who we've talked about a few times. Those are really the key contributors. But you've got a cheap Isaiah Likely there, who the backup tight ends, it's another thing that we harp on. If that's the perfect example. If he sees 2 catches and one of them goes into the end zone and one of them goes for a handful of yards, that could be enough in a low scoring game to put you over the line. So plays like that, I think, are important to continue to include in these builds.
All right. We're having a lot of fun here. Anything you guys want to highlight before we take a trip over to the old No House Advantage, sponsor of our show?
Yeah, real quick on Isaiah Likely, to kind of piggyback on what Terry was talking about. We do see the Ravens run a lot of the 2 tight end set, so it wouldn't be surprising if we did see Isaiah Likely do something. He was a preseason star that a lot of best ball bros were talking up. He hasn't quite hit yet during the season, but we're only 5 weeks in. Yeah, he's a rookie. Takes time.
All righty. We've got
raise your hand if you're stunned that EMac didn't chime in with an likely joke there. Tagging off of whatever Nick just said.
I'm sad that I didn't think of that.
I really thought, Tyler's raising his hand. I really thought it was coming. That's why I was just sitting here waiting.
No, I was getting ready to be excited about talking about the free Stokastic tools. Did you know that you can get 3 free days of Stokastic tools for the NFL content? If you're new to Stokastic Platinum or an NFL user, you want to give the tools a look, you can get them. You can go to the link below us here, and that will get you in for 3 free days of the NFL tools. That includes all access to the premium content, the lineup generator, the player compare tool, the player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, boom bust tool, and so much more. Keep in mind, Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and not included with that offer. You've already used up your free 3 days, then what are you waiting for? Use the NFL Showdown Live promo. That's NFL Showdown Live, all caps, all one word, NFL Showdown Live, to get your 50% off any weekly package here. You could do the full package, Stokastic Plus. You could do NFL only. You could do whatever you want, but jump on in there, get it for half price. It's a good deal there. And that brings us over to No House Advantage, sponsor of the show. So they are bringing you an excellent and dynamic fantasy sports platform. You have the Pick'em contest. We're going to talk about those, and then you can go against the house if you want to go with some more traditional sports prop contests where you pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the questions that they have, and you get to 20x on No House Advantage if you get all 5 correct. Their contest, which we're going to look at here, I'm going to call that up on my other screen, is a lot of fun. We build out free lineups and free projections for you for these contests. And right now, there are 450 people out of 1,200 into tonight's contest. It's a $20 entry fee, but if you come in through the link below us here in the description, No House Advantage will give you a $50 deposit match bonus on your first deposit. You put in 50, they'll give you 50. That's 5 entries into tonight's contest. We'll be surprised if that gets more than 60, 65% full. That is overlay. Yes, you have to monetize it, but wouldn't you like to buy a raffle ticket that has a $10,000 first prize and only have to go against 700 other people? I'd like to do that. I think I'm going to do that. Terry, overlay is king. People don't go to the small sites, Terry.
Yeah. It's sitting right out there. I am guilty of that myself. I do not play enough on these sites. I don't do enough chasing overlay, and you're constantly talking about it, and you're constantly just racking up money and taking advantage of it. And it's the right approach. Go out there, and if you're within the sound of my voice, there are apps that can point out overlay if you don't know how to figure it out yourself. It doesn't just mean, hey, this tournament didn't fill. You have to calculate it against what the guarantee is and all of that. But I think that it is valuable to chase overlay, and on a site like No House Advantage, it's just sitting there. It's part of their promotional tool at this point. They're allowing it to happen for a reason. They want to get new people over there. So I think it's great. I think people should be taking advantage of it starting right now. Go build lineups now.
All right, dropping in our free optimal lineups page for No House Advantage. And I'm dropping in the free projections where we go through each of them. So what we've done here on these optimal lineups pages, No House Advantage does accept CVS uploads. What we've done here is we've ranked based on probability of success, the questions that are available to us, and assigned them the confidence 7 down to 1. And we have built out, let's see here. 20 times, I don't know, what are there, about 50, 40 on here. We've built out about 800 different lineups here. So you can go pick one that you'd like. You can look at these and kind of see that the Joe Mixon under 70.5 rushing yards. We're going to talk about that one. Under 70.5 rushing yards is the way we're suggesting to go at Stokastic here. I believe last time I looked, we had him projected for around 60 or so yards. Terry, we have Joe Mixon projected for 57.6 yards. Feels like the under in the prop contest, not in their head-to-head against the house, the No House Advantage tournament here. Feels like going under on Mixon is a good call.
In the tournament where it's at 70.5?
Yes.
Is what you're saying? Yeah. So you put all these helpful numbers in, and then you're saying different numbers than the ones that are listed.
Well, I took those numbers 2 hours ago.
All right.
I'm looking at what's on the site now. Sorry, Terry.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I'm just looking at, I put together actually, just so we could, when we were talking about some of these prop picks, I put together some, industry consensus projections. Looks like consensus has them around 69.3 yards, which is a little bit closer to that line. But I think based on where we've got them, I think we were a little bit sharper than industry consensus most of the time. I think I'd be more inclined to take the under, but maybe it's a little bit more thin than what we're looking at.
All right. I see there's some P jokes going on in chat here. Do we really need to tip? I'm gonna do P jokes. So I Kickstart, he says there's a small PP joke in here. I just can't find it. Kickstart, on a scale of 1 to 10, when it comes to humor, you're an 8.
That's terrible.
Tyler, you are the man.
Nicely done.
Nick, what are we thinking about here? Let's call out another one. Jamar Chase, 85.5 receiving yards. You feeling like the over or the under for the No House Advantage contest?
Ooh, so it's at 85.5, not 86.5, right?
Yes.
Doesn't even matter because we're going under. Like I said, it's T. Higgins day, baby. I think 85.5 is just a slightly too high for him.
All right. I'm building this one out. Hayden Hurst at 30.5, Terry. I see we keep talking about this. I'll get the groin injury issue here. Under 30.5 or over 30.5, or does this feel like a stay away for you?
Hurst is a guy we've talked about liking quite a bit. I'm just looking for him on the old board here. And where the hell can't I find there we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, Hurst, industry consensus has him catching the ball 3 times, pulling in 31.3. We were looking at a line that was right around there, if I'm not mistaken. Where was
Correct.
he? 30.5. So yeah, that's a little bit on the money for my comfort levels. I don't like to chase ones that are quite so close. I think I'd be saying slightly over, but it's very, very tight.
All right. Let's talk about overs on interceptions, Nick. Interceptions, 1/2 interception. Let's see. Is that one of our props here for Lamar Jackson? Because I think we have Jackson. Do we get it there? Why, yes, we can do 2.5 touchdowns, 60.5 rushing yards, 240 passing yards, or over under 1/2 interception. I'm taking the interception. I want to say we have him for around a 70% chance of an interception tonight. Feels about right. Where do you stand on that one?
I like the over. He's thrown over 1 interception in 3 of 4 games. He's thrown 4 total interceptions. And the Bengals defense isn't the best, but they did look sneaky good against the Dolphins. So maybe they've woken up. So I like it.
Which quarterback was that? Never mind. That's just mean.
I don't need to be mean anymore. Okay, EMac. I'm gonna cry.
I know. I don't want that to happen, especially as I'm getting ready to upload my lineups here. Terrius, we're looking out at some more picks here. We'll do 2 more of these and then we'll take some questions. Got Demarcus Robinson at 30.5. He's been a major disappointment. He's really good at running wind sprints. If he catches a ball, if he gets targeted and brings one in, you're kind of betting on 2 catches with 30.5 yards. He usually gets the intermediate to deeper routes. The volume is always going to be questionable, even though Baltimore is down Rashad Bateman. How do you feel about Demarcus Robinson in general and at 30.5 passing yards?
Yeah, I think he needs to catch the ball 3 times to get there. He's looking at, if I'm looking at the industry projections, he's looking at a 2.2 receptions for 26.8. And then if we're looking at what he's done for the season, 10 targets, 5 catches in 4 games. Like you said, it's not a tremendous amount of volume. Where you can get it with him potentially is it's his average depth of target is 8.6 yards, but his yards after catch, 12 yards total, yards after catch per reception, 2.4. If you get him in the open and he can turn something on the after the catch, then maybe you can get there in 2 catches. I don't love it, but I do see a path to it. Let's put it that way. It's not an intimidating number.
And then Tyler Boyd rounding it out, 45.5. Nick, what are your thoughts there on Tyler Boyd? Definitely the third wheel, totally competent, but there's only 1 football available per play, sadly.
True. That's true. Maybe with Terry's new rules of flag football, they also play with 2 footballs.
Now we're talking.
But yeah, he's getting like,
what did they call it in the new Top Gun? Dogfight football, where they were playing with 2 footballs at the same time, offense and defense at the same time.
Spoiler alert! Maybe I haven't seen that yet.
Replace the volleyball scene with that scene in your head, and you've seen the new Top Gun. Basically,
EMac's only watched the shirtless guy compilation on YouTube. He hasn't gotten to the movie yet.
Well, then he would have seen that scene. Damn it.
Yeah, he definitely has. So what I was actually saying about Tyler Boyd is that he's getting like around 5 targets a game. He's one of those guys that unless someone gets hurt, like knock on wood, not rooting for an injury, that I don't really feel like he has the upside to have that big game. We saw it against the Jets, but there's a big difference. But maybe actually there isn't with the Jets and the Ravens, because the Ravens defense is battered. So I actually kind of like Boyd tonight. I talked myself into it right now.
I see that. I think I screwed up my upload file here, so that's going to be a challenge. Let's hit undo a few times. This is what happens when you try to sort your contests. It doesn't like that when you cut and paste or copy and paste instead of cut and paste. That's a challenge.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't really help things.
But we've got 20 minutes here. Let's take some questions.
There's
here
a lot of time.
The chat. I will get my CSV squared away. I'm just going to re-download it. That makes the most sense. I'll get that squared away. But chat, give us some questions. We've got that. I'm going to finish building out my lineup there in the No House Advantage contest. I see one popping up here. Ricard Flyers. How do you feel about Patrick Ricard, Terry?
Boy,
and I keep wanting to say Picard.
Do we know site or anything like that? So I can
probably
DFS of it. I hadn't really
is the most viable.
Yeah. Let's take a quick look where we got him on the DK slate at 600. He's popping up 0.3% optimal in your captain spot. Obviously, that's probably not where this person's looking to use him. 1.8% optimal in the util and 4.1% owned. So he's negatively leveraged without a ton of upside. He's got a 0.5% probability of being in your top 2 to 6. it's one of those plays where, like, if that $600 makes you able to get to something else that's unique, something else that fills in that lack of upside that you're getting there, then by all means you can fire away with that play. The issue with it is we talked about James Proche, who's at 200 and has more viable upside at a little bit more popularity, but negligible enough popularity when you're talking about that kind of a salary discount, that I think I would just click on him more frequently. But so would everybody else. So there is the argument to be made that it's just a more unique decision to be made for your value guy, but it is $400 more expensive than the $200 Proche. So depends on what you're doing with the rest of that lineup. But I think he's at least on the board on DK. On FanDuel, I think it's probably a little bit thin, even as a long shot tournament play.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him get 3 targets last week, so there is at least some possibility that we've seen this season.
There we
go. I'm uploaded. Okay. I'm happy. I'm not. Everybody's got my undivided attention for the next.
Making sure EMac was still there.
No, I don't need. I have enough issues with stupid files.
The weed.
That's actually a good point. Although, as I've mentioned before, Nick was not walking the earth the last time I had a little of the wacky tobacco, a little of the devil's lettuce, if you will. It's been a long time.
Well, you let me know anytime you're in Jersey, my friend.
I think those days are beyond me now, but we'll see. All right. Looking for some more questions here in chat. If you are in the Discord, you can tag us as well. Terry, who are you afraid that is going to break the slate that you do not have enough of in your lineup?
That's an interesting question. I mean, the way that I build, I've got lots of everybody, especially the oddball slate breaker type. So it's probably somebody more likely in the captain role. Let's say, like, if it's not like I'm undercutting, it's not like I'm thin on him necessarily in just the raw number, but like if Lamar completely went off, I might not have that covered in terms of having as many options covered as somebody who had like 60% Lamar MVP lineups. So it would be something along those lines. It might be something along the lines of being like a little thin on Joe Mixon MVP lineups as I'm looking at this and just kind of trying to parse through what's actually on the board in front of me here in the raw sense. So it'd probably be something like that as opposed to like a guy like Josh Oliver caught a touchdown pass and I didn't have it. Like I'll have some of those shares covered if that happens, or Mitchell Wilcox.
You do have them in your lineups?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I play those guys.
This is rich guy Terry McBride. Who's coming off that strong.
I mean,
6-figure win.
That huge win that I had Will Dissly, the backup tight end, had 2 looks that night, caught one for like 15 yards, took the other one into the end zone, and that's enough. And that's what I'm looking for out of a play like that, right? Like Mitchell Wilcox has seen a couple of targets. If he gets one of them into the end zone, that's differentiated. That's interesting in a low scoring, ugly kind of a game. That might get you there. So it's not that I'm playing, 60 shares of him, but a sprinkling here and there. There and there.
All right. Nick, same question. Who is the terrifying option that is going to ruin your night?
Yeah, it's probably going to end up being Isaiah Likely because he legitimately does actually scare me because I as we kept talking about this, started thinking more and more about the fact that these rookie tight ends normally take some time, and then maybe that time is week 5, and I just don't have any of them. So that will end up very bad. And same with if that fat man Mike Davis scores a touchdown, that will also bury me.
All right. Super chat here from Malcolm Revamp says, who are your captain and MVP for cash on both sites? I think it's Lamar Jackson, and you don't think twice about it.
Yep. Easy answer.
If you wanted to vary from that, I would say DraftKings, it would be T. Higgins. And I would say FanDuel, I don't think I'd go away from Lamar Jackson on FanDuel cash under any circumstance.
Not in cash, no. No reason to.
We've got, let's see, the No House Advantage contest here has 688 out of 1,200. It's a $10,000 first prize here. $20 to get in. If you use the link below us here in the description, you will get a $50 deposit match. So you could sign up, put in $50. They'll give you $50 and you can put in 5 entries there into this contest that will have some overlay. I see Eric Lindquist is in the chat. Lindy, what's up, Team Eric? Shout out to him. Been having a lot of fun in his betting Discord channel. He and Ben and Gajeski and Shander and Laffy, and I'm forgetting Greg. There's one or two others. They all have their own channels where they're posting picks. That is available via a separate package here, but in conjunction with our sister site, Odd Shopper, we're doing a lot more in the sports wagering. I ran a nice parlay of selections I chose from Gajeski and from Ben Rasa yesterday in the college football streets. Had a nice little run, came this close. If I would have had another 30 yards from, who did I say? Deebo Samuel today, Terry. I would have turned 10 into 150. Oops. Got the other 4 right on that, courtesy of Eric Lindquist throwing out some prize picks.
Well, there were rumors this morning that Mr. Gajeski had a hell of a day on the college football site. Somebody said they used his picks to go 11 of 11. I don't know if those were he went 11 of 11 or that person just adapted the picks, but I mean that's pretty killer. And I know when he checked it, it seemed like he was pretty pleased with himself. So he's just so incredibly deep in football. It's ridiculous. If you're missing his content, you are missing out.
He's already posted 11 picks for college football for the upcoming weekend. This is where he's going to work to beat the closing line value. And generally he and Ben get ahead of this. They're usually saving you 1, 2, sometimes even as many as 3 points, depending on, it could be overs, it could, or under, it could game totals, it could be team totals, it could be money line bets, etc. They also put out, or he also puts out his Prize Picks college football player props early as well. We see those swing by as many as 20 or 30 yards from when he tells us to grab them and to where they end up on Saturday morning. So again, getting in on this now is a great opportunity to beat that, find that edge, right? That's like the edge that's available in DFS. This is how you do it in sports wagering, is you get people that are completely immersed in this, and then they are your guide, if you will, as you tail them. I'm getting a little choked up here. It's impressive.
So
what they do.
The best way to make the best bets for sports betting is to make other people's bets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I like it. Don't make up your own nonsense. Follow the experts.
Yeah. That's we don't have, I'm paying for a convenience here. For a convenience.
Damn right.
That's the key thing. 11 minutes to go here.
Convenience, expertise, accuracy, dedication, diligence. What else?
Oh,
Hard work.
I just like to call that the Lindquist. That's the Lindquist guarantee. I know he's up there with his heads up displays across all the different sites with his projections and our projections and looking at lines, and he's looking at Odd Shopper. He's doing it all.
He basically lives in a sports book is what you're saying.
Pretty much. And then Gajeski, he's just a robot. And then Ben, the mad scientist. Ben, no bet he won't take. No side he won't look at. The uglier the game, the more likely you are to see him involved in it one way or the other. If it's soccer going on 19 time zones away that they don't even have live scoring, he'll bet it. And he's good at it. This is what you can get here now.
That's the amazing part, is the being good at it. That's the key. Anyway, any idiot can throw a bet at it. It's the being good, the cashing those tickets on the Bangladeshi soccer. That's
Russian ping pong.
Right.
Oh, yes. Raindrops rolling down a window. All right. Well, was Rain-X involved? That's important to know. You got to understand what kind of accoutrements are out there. All right. We've got 10 minutes here before lock. One last look here at the No House Advantage, because it is going to dramatically overlay. 500 spots still available. Probably will get another 200 in there, which means they are going to overlay by about 20%. It's a pretty good deal. It means you're at almost assured of playing rake free, meaning they will give out about as much as they take in. They're going to be giving that out, and if they take in less than what they will be giving out, that would be the overlay, right? You got to monetize this, but it's like playing a contest for full value against 2/3 of the people, right? It's like a buy two get one free sort of situation. Another way to look at it. All right. How many shares are we playing of each backup quarterback? That would be 0 for me, Neil.
Yeah, that's an adventure that I don't take. That's where I draw the line. I don't play the guys who are just completely that unlikely take the field. Like I'll take low probability shots, but if I need an injury for a guy to see the field, if I need something like, that oddball to happen, those are shots I just don't tend to take. Nick, do you tend to roster backups and things like that to get yourself different in these?
Yeah, I just have 150 Tyler Huntley captain. That's what I do. That's how you win money, baby.
That's the approach.
All right. Well, for those of you wondering, you can get into the Stokastic free NFL 3 days free. That link is below us here in the description. If you have not had a Stokastic subscription before, you can take advantage of that 3-day offer. You can also get 50% off any 1 week package by using the promo code NFL Showdown Live. That's all one word, NFL Showdown Live. All right. Not too many questions here. Obi-Wan just has one. Duvernay ? Yes, he almost made my main lineup there on DraftKings as my cash option. I ended up going with Prosh just to change things, or not change things up, but to get a little more flexibility. But he was definitely on the short list there. I think he's appropriately priced there. I think it's a little bit much on draft or FanDuel where it's just half PPR, but I do think he is a core option there as well. I'll drop the link into my article, write an article for each of these island games, and I break down each team and by position, and then I rank the entire player pool. A lot of people like that. It helps me. It's a good thought exercise. And hey, if you look at that, you can probably figure out what I am doing in my cash lineups or my main lineups that I'm putting out there for team free money. So team free money, we kind of either win them all or lose them all, Terry. It's kind of the way it rolls here.
Listen, if Chad hasn't figured out by now that when you throw those out there, they should be pouncing on them as quickly as possible and profiting immensely, then
I think there's still 2 left unclaimed. Username EMac over there, $1.
Go get them,
last of the big spenders there on DraftKings.
Don't be afraid. Go get them. I do like Devin Duvernay, though, which is what the question was. 10.9 yard average depth of target, 13 targets on the year, 12 catches. Is that right? He's caught 12 of 13 passes this year.
He's only dropped 1.
I didn't realize he was catching the ball that quite so consistently. 3 touchdowns. I did know that he was seeing looks in the end zone. So definitely, I like that. And with Bateman out, you can expect the uptick in volume and him to be a featured target. So definitely think he's very viable, regardless of site or role that the question was about.
All right. Tyler McKeever, it is Sunday night. There may not be anybody staffing the support email box, but I'm sure they will get back to you by tomorrow morning for that. But yes, damn it, I was going to make it the whole show. Thank God I'm not doing tomorrow night's game, because what am I going to call the Oakland Raiders, the Los Angeles Raiders, the Irwindale Raiders, and anything but the Las Vegas Raiders.
The Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders. So there we go. Steering away from Burrow, ? Seems that's the case on a lot of my lineups, especially with the ones that we kind of built out. I did actively go in and let's see, I can look at my exposure. I have him on 46% of my lineups in the utility on DraftKings. I'm doing 92 lineups. I have him at 9% on the captain. Jackson is 23 on the captain. I think I went a little high there. I've got him at 60 something percent, 63%. So I'm running Jackson
in the captain role, or
no, 23 on captain, 63 on the utility. So okay. I'm playing him like 80+% of my lineups.
Yeah,
which I think is appropriate for him.
I agree with that for Jackson. I'm in the same neighborhood. I'm not sure what the split is, but I've got him in roughly that amount of lineups. Burrow is slightly over 50% in across both roles. So I'm not necessarily going away from Burrow, but I certainly have a lot more Jackson. Nick, how are you seeing the split between the two QBs?
Yeah, I definitely like Jackson a little bit more. Action Jackson himself. But I do think that we might not be giving enough credit to Joe Burrow, because to me, the Ravens defense is kind of a disaster, especially in the second half of games. They really kind of are brittle. They deteriorate at a quick rate. I can't talk right now. The bets are down 4-0.
All right, you're the young guy on the show. You can pronounce it.
It's okay.
Hey,
deteriorate.
Wait till you go 20 years between playoff appearances for your favorite baseball team. Then you could have sadness. Right now, no.
The Dolphins haven't even won a playoff game in my lifetime.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. You missed the isotoner Dan Marino days.
It's not their fault you were born in the wrong decade.
Yeah, mom and dad, what the hell? My dad's watching, that's why I said that. But yeah, I do think that Joe Burrow, it's 3-0 only, my bad. But Joe Burrow, I do think
you
that
can't quite see it through the tears. It looked like a 4.
Is your dad a Met fan too?
Yeah, he is, but he's a Jets fan. He was laughing at me while the Dolphins were losing while I was
Well,
having a very sad time.
For him. That's some upside at least.
Very sad. But yeah, I do like Joe Burrow slightly more than it seems like you guys do. But I definitely would not want to fade Joe Burrow completely.
Yeah, it's not something I would go out of my way to do for. I can't even imagine the reason other than, there's been a couple spots where he's been just put on his back a few times this year, but he's already over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns on the season, throwing about 64% completion rate, 2.6% interception rate. There's not a lot to worry about with Joe Burrow on talent or anything like that. So yeah, I think you fire away with him. 274 yards a game. Just looking at some of these different numbers that I've got since I bothered to put it together. Yeah, I think it's he's Joe Burrow. Like, I don't think we've lost anything with him. So if you played him aggressively in seasons past, I haven't seen anything this year that's going to make me not want to get there.
Do you know he's only played in like 30 regular season games or something like that? It feels like he's been around a lot longer.
Because he was out for half that season.
Right. But still, it does. I mean, they were in the Super Bowl last year.
Which
right?
he came. Yeah, he hit such a high level, just like initially, like he never had those growing pains, right? He was just in. As soon as he was healthy, he's just this version of Joe Burrow. So you rarely see that. So it just makes him, as compared to other guys his age, it just makes him seem like a rock solid veteran a lot of the time in my mind.
Yeah, and then after he kind of healed from that injury, he started running the ball more as well, which really helps him out a ton.
So he is interesting. He is rather nimble, but if you look at his rushing attempts, I think I think that's why I know he played in 30 games. I think in 22 of them he has 15 or less yards rushing. It's interesting. He's kind of like Patrick Mahomes in that fashion. He can do it, but it's better off with him extending the play. Although that's why he takes so many sacks as well. So.
Yeah. I've got him at 5 attempts per game, 4 yards per attempt. So, a nice serviceable number for a guy to get out of the pocket, but yeah, not somebody they're necessarily designing runs for. He's certainly not Lamar.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we are at kickoff. 800 of you left. Hit that like button on the way out. Get us to 300. That we would appreciate. I'm going to hit it right now. You need 18 more after I do that. So there we go. But tomorrow we're back in doing this all over again. It is going to be yet another busy day at Stokastic. You're going to want to subscribe, hit that notification bell because you want to know every time we go live. We now have 4 YouTube channels, and on this one, we are starting off at 9 a.m. with Laffy and Savoca, most likely joined by Alex Brown. They will be breaking down Monday Night Football at 9 a.m. At 11 a.m., you're going to get Zippy and Shippy doing the NFL Rewind. At 3 o'clock, you're going to get No House Advantage Monday Night Football half-hour show with Shander and Jeff Ulrich. You then at 6:30, you're going to get 2 hours of Monday Night Football talk. First with Dave Lochran and Neil Rich Guy Orfield on the Deeper Dive, and then you've got Live Before Lock with Matt Kajeski and Matt Savoca breaking down all the nuances of what should be a fun game. 51.5 over under right now for the Raiders in Arrowhead. With
Think
that,
the Raiders hold up their end of that one?
The Raiders.
They have lost 8 of their last 9 games against. I've started writing my article. They've lost 8 of their last 9 games to not Cincinnati.
I just feel like Kansas City. I just feel like every time I'm expecting a big game out of the Raiders, they let me down. And they just put up a clunker. Like, I'm hopeful for a great primetime game, nice shootout, a fun slate, but I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully we get a decent game out of this one.
I hope so. All right. Well, you guys can follow Terry out there on the Twitter streets at DigitalB21.
Follow me. Don't bother following me. I don't do anything on Twitter.
At EMac DFS. And Nick is at Notorious FNTSY. Of course,
send me some tweets, guys. I'll respond.
Yeah, Stokastic.
Help me be more active.
More
social. Make me more social with my media.
With that, gamers, and especially Tyler Zander, good luck.
Adios.